We can count the cult conditioning tactics employed at Holy Ghost Church that were designed for everyone of all ages and which seem to work. Number 1, loud music with repetitive religious lyrics to get at you through your ears. Number 2, hard seating to get at you through your posterior. Number 3, kneelers to get at you through your knees and back and to instill the idea of their mercy combined with the need for your physical sacrifice. You kneel for a while and then they say, "Please rise," and you get relief, compliments of the church. It's a rewards and punishment system, even if they don't outwardly call it that. 4, a set of organized, mostly unison body movements. Sit, stand, kneel, repeat ad nauseum to get at you through your sense of routine and obedience. 5, incense in the air at most masses to get at you through your nose, sometimes even during the condensed liturgy of the Eucharist for students only. The sense of smell is the most sensitive sense, if you can believe it. 6, a shared but simplistic ritual human sacrifice to get at you through your sense of belonging with the crowd and your fear of death. 7, wafers and wine to get at you through your feelings of hunger and your sense of taste. It also seems like a gift from the church, which again flatters the church and subjugates the congregation just a little. 8, the collection basket, believe it or not, to get at you through your need to be helpful, and again, the need to fit in with the group. 9, incantations, chanting, repeated sayings in unison to get at you through your own mouth. The incantations don't necessarily have to be of any certain tone, and are really more like spoken word art. Not being songs all the time makes it easier for more people to get involved, since they don't have to sing on key with the chants and incantations. 10, low lighting, stained glass windows, and no clear windows to the outside, to get at you through your eyes and to prevent visual interference from more interesting and legitimate things outside the church. 11, stations of the cross on the wall. At Holy Ghost, they're in woodcuts, very graphic, and above the confessionals on the left and right sides of the center aisle, as you walk into the church from the front entrance. This is a constant graphic visual reminder of the sacrifice of the man-God. It's a reinforcement for any wandering eyes. As a child, it frightens me, so it did what it was designed to do very effectively. 12, special colorful robes and other old-world garb worn by the celebrant. This again added to the supposed wise and noble nature of the priests. The nuns used this method all day, every day. And there are more. These are the basic cult conditioning tactics of Catholic Mass. Other denominations do things a bit differently, but this is the original Christian Church's version of the original Christian Mass, and these are age-old tactics used in the Mass and beyond. These tactics worked on most people, it seemed, and even on me, until I grew a little. I began to figure out that most of these tactics were employed by Jim Jones, and just about every other insane preacher turned criminal. That was a lot of people, as I read the newspapers more and more in 8th grade. If the Catholic Church may be compared in terms of business ventures to Coca-Cola, then the entire Protestant division of Christianity may be called Pepsi. They have their distinct differences, but one begat the other in the grand scheme of things, and they are basically the same thing anyway. In this way, we can see another similarity between religion and capitalism. The bottom line, which is often simply monetary profit, outranks all other concerns, including loyalty to any other cause than capitalism, or any sense of necessity of tradition. This is one of the rare interruptions in religious thought that steer so many churches in their business moves. The business of religion is lucrative, but immoral, and I found that out on the very inside of Christianity. There are few violent conflicts in the world that cannot be traced back to the irrational thinking of theists. As someone once said, the rational have always had to accommodate the irrational. I am proud to take on that task. I also have a drive to expose religion for the fraud that it is, and to try to reduce Christianity's impact on society in general. I have Catholic school and the Bible to thank for all of these things, but since I left that religion, it has followed me in the form of Christians not at all satisfied with religious liberty for me. I have been harassed by evangelists of many types and denominations all my life. Holy Ghost School was personal. It seemed to me that they had and still have a responsibility to validate their program by producing their God. They never tried to validate their wild supernatural program one little bit. They assumed that since we didn't voice dissent, we all agreed. They forgot that they themselves squashed dissent and any possibility for dissent as early as the first grade. It was all hidden in me and anyone else who disagreed. I didn't hear from anyone else in that school that they didn't believe in God either. I can only assume that I was not alone in my thinking and that I was also not alone in being afraid to speak up about it. Both my parents were good seasoned theater actors and I learned a lot about acting from them. But the Catholic Church was my acting college. We all seemed to think the same on this, though. That was the vibe. We were certainly miserable in unison at times. One particular secret about religious schools is that since the leaders were so easily fooled by other religious people into believing in such a silly God idea, those same leaders can easily be fooled by students about the non-acceptance of such ideas. They can't read your mind any more than they can produce a God. This is why it is logical to declare that most, if not all, churches in America list at least one non-believer as a congregant. I wasn't nearly the smartest kid in my grade either. If we didn't talk about atheism in my little group of friends, we certainly didn't need to after we graduated. Someone got on the phone and called all of us, and we gathered at John Jay's house. It was me, John Jay, John K, and Andy, and Alex, the same old crew. We hung out until the sun began to go down, and then we all went to John Jay's car, and his mother drove us to the grocery store nearby. There we bought around 50 rolls of toilet paper, 10 tubes of toothpaste, probably 10 dozen eggs, and at least a few cans of shaving cream. We were on a mission. John Jay's mother, what a wonderful woman she was. She drove us straight back to Holy Ghost School with our groceries and just dropped us off. She said she'd be back in an hour or so. We said, great, thanks. We took our groceries into the quadrangle and proceeded to toilet paper every tree, smear toothpaste into every window and door lock, and throw eggs everywhere and put shaving cream, well, everywhere. It was glorious release and hilarity for us pent-up boys. We didn't break anything, we just made a big mess. We turned over every trash can and spread trash everywhere. We moved the outside benches around. That was a bit of work, so we didn't do much to that. No one saw us or made themselves known anyway. After about 30 minutes of this, we went back to the drop-off point in the parking lot and met John Jay's mother, who was there a little early, and off we went. I came away from that thinking we had some amount of justice, but there was so much more injustice to tackle. If I worked all day, every day, to bring down that school, it wouldn't be enough. I decided I wasn't going to try. It was better to move on and live happily. I waited around 25 years to write this book. The more time went by after I graduated, the more it became apparent what had really been happening in that school and church. There was a certain amount of anguish that came later on. It resulted from my time at Holy Ghost, but it had to mature in my mind before it really came to light. I spent years mired in guilt and shame about not believing in God anymore, and that slowed down my progress toward a life of reason. I struggled with the booby traps of indoctrination they had set in my mind. At no point did they produce a God or anything to back up their wild supernatural claims. After 8 years at that school, no one thought we needed any verification at all. They assumed that we already got that verification over the last several years. They were wrong. They made it so that we couldn't safely complain or even question Christianity. This has a lasting effect in the psyche that stuck with me for several years. I wanted to think outside of that box of religious thought, and the sin aspect kicked in. I didn't want to go to hell. It wasn't enough that Christians had never made an effort to provide a legitimate reason to suspend rational thinking for their religion. They simply commanded us to do that. But they also never attempted to verify their own claim that we would burn in hell forever, given the right set of sins on our soul at death. They took efforts to give us a clear idea of what hell involved, but not where exactly it is, or how they know any of this. Despite the obvious insanity of that plan, it worked. I honestly believed in all of it up until around the 5th grade. As I grew up in the mind, the idea became more clear for what it was, a scam. I began to question everything, and they should have known that would include questioning religion. Most of my fellow students just didn't have the guts to do anything about it, but we all seemed to dread church and religion class. All except for Jimmy, of course. I had checked out other churches by attending services with family members in Austin on Thanksgiving and Christmas a few times. There were also the funerals of my great-grandparents. In all those religious situations, I found the same thing missing: actual gods. It became clear to me that religion is human-made, especially that part about God. I was utterly relieved.